The black Bentley rolled to a stop at the cemetery gates, its engine purring quietly against the solemn silence of Oakwood Memorial Gardens. Inside, Nathaniel Reed adjusted his tie, steeling himself for the ritual he'd performed every month for the past 3 years. The dashboard clock read 7:15 a.m., early enough to ensure privacy, late enough for the morning light to illuminate the marble headstone that bore his wife's name. Nathaniel nodded to his driver. "I'll be an hour, Thomas." "Same as always." "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you." The crisp autumn air bit at his face as he stepped out, carrying a bouquet of white lilies, Rebecca's favorites. At 48, Nathaniel Reed cut an imposing figure even in grief. Silver threaded through his dark hair at the temples, and 3 years of mourning had etched permanent lines around his eyes. But it had done nothing to diminish the commanding presence that had built Reed Innovations into a multi-billion-dollar tech empire. He followed the familiar path, mentally rehearsing what he would tell Rebecca today. Stock prices up 20%. The Singapore expansion finalized. Their charity foundation had funded 3 new hospitals in developing countries, all accomplishments that felt hollow without her to share them. As he crested the small hill that led to Rebecca's plot in the private garden section, Nathaniel stopped abruptly. Someone was already there. 4 small figures huddled around his wife's grave, so identical in appearance, he momentarily thought his grief was causing him to see multiples. 4 children, identical in every way, knelt arranging what appeared to be drawings around the base of Rebecca's headstone. Anger flashed through him. This was private property, his sanctuary, his time with Rebecca. "Excuse me," he called out, his voice harsher than intended. "This is a private plot. You shouldn't be here." 4 heads turned simultaneously, revealing identical faces with hauntingly familiar amber eyes that widened in surprise. One of the children stood, brushing grass from her knees, and stepped forward with quiet dignity, remarkable for a child who couldn't be more than 8 years old. "We're sorry, sir," she said. "We come every week to leave drawings for Miss Rebecca. The groundskeeper said it was okay." Nathaniel's irritation faltered. "You knew my wife?" The girl nodded. "She taught us art at Harmony House before she got sick. She said our drawings made her happy." Nathaniel moved closer, noticing now the carefully created artworks laid reverently against the marble. Landscapes, portraits, abstract designs, each bearing different styles despite coming from seemingly identical artists. His throat tightened as he recognized Rebecca's influence in the brushstrokes. "She never mentioned," he began, then stopped as something caught his eye. In one of the drawings, a portrait of a woman with Rebecca's warm smile, there was an unmistakable technique he'd seen only once before. A distinctive way of capturing light in the eyes that Rebecca had developed during her art school days. A technique she said she'd never taught anyone. The child beside him followed his gaze. "That's Mia's drawing. She's the best at portraits." "And you are?" Nathaniel asked, unable to tear his eyes from the familiar artistic signature. "I'm Anna," she said simply. "We're the Reynolds Quadruplets. Miss Rebecca called us her little miracles." Nathaniel Reed's world had always been defined by precision and control. As CEO of Reed Innovations, he'd built his reputation on calculated risks and meticulous planning. Nothing in his carefully ordered existence had prepared him for 4 identical children claiming a connection to the wife he'd buried 3 years ago. Especially not when they possessed artistic techniques that Rebecca had considered uniquely her own. "How did you meet my wife?" Nathaniel asked, keeping his voice gentle, despite the questions whirling through his mind. Another of the quadruplets stepped forward. Unlike Anna's quiet confidence, this child radiated cautious intelligence. Miss Rebecca volunteered at Harmony House every Thursday for art therapy. "I'm Emma," she added, as if sensing his confusion about their identical appearance. Anna is the oldest by 2 minutes. I'm second. That's Mia with the paint smudge on her sleeve. And Lily is the one fixing her drawing. Nathaniel glanced at the remaining 2 girls. Mia offered a hesitant smile, while Lily remained focused on adjusting the corner of her artwork that had been disturbed by the morning breeze. All 4 shared the same heart-shaped face, amber eyes, and chestnut hair, pulled into identical braids. Yet now that they'd been identified, he could see subtle differences in expression and mannerism. "Harmony House," Nathaniel repeated. "The children's home on Westfield Street?" Rebecca had mentioned volunteering, but never specifics. Another compartment of her life she'd kept separate from their high-pressure world of corporate acquisitions and shareholder meetings. "We've lived there since we were babies," Anna explained. "Miss Rebecca started coming when we were 5. She said we had natural talent." Nathaniel knelt to examine the drawings more closely. Each piece displayed remarkable skill for children. So young, but Mia's portrait sent a chill through him. The technique was unmistakable. Rebecca's technique. He remembered the hours she'd spent perfecting it in their loft during the early years of their marriage, before Reed innovations consumed his time and board meetings replaced Sunday afternoons in her studio. "Your drawings are extraordinary," he said truthfully. Rebecca had a remarkable eye for talent. Emma studied him with unnerving intensity. "You look sad when you say her name." "I miss her very much," Nathaniel admitted. "We sell our drawings downtown on Saturdays," Lily spoke up, finally satisfied with the placement of her artwork. "People say they're good enough to buy. We're saving for art school." The entrepreneurial spirit stirred something in Nathaniel. "And how is business?" "We made $67 last weekend," Emma reported proudly. "But we don't sell the special ones. Those are just for Miss Rebecca." Nathaniel checked his watch, a habit ingrained through decades of tightly scheduled days. He had a board meeting at 10. "I should let you finish your visit," he said, placing his lilies carefully beside their drawings. "We're done," Anna assured him. "We were just saying goodbye until next week." As the quadruplets gathered their remaining supplies, Nathaniel was struck by their self-sufficiency. They moved with practiced coordination, each taking responsibility for different items without needing to communicate. "Do you have adult supervision?" he asked, suddenly aware of their vulnerability. "Mrs. Winters from Harmony House drops us off and picks us up," Mia explained, pointing to an aging station wagon visible near the cemetery entrance. "She waits in the car because walking hurts her knees." Nathaniel nodded, relieved. "Perhaps I'll see you next month during my visit." "We come every Thursday," Anna told him. "That was Miss Rebecca's special day with us." As they walked away, Nathaniel found himself calling after them, "Wait!" The quadruplets turned in unison, a synchronized movement both disconcerting and fascinating. "Would you mind if I took a photo of these drawings before you go, to remember today?" Anna glanced at her sisters, receiving subtle nods of agreement. "Miss Rebecca took pictures of our art too. She said memories need proper keeping." After the girls departed, Nathaniel sat beside Rebecca's grave longer than his scheduled hour, the photographs of their drawings open on his phone. There was something profoundly unsettling about Mia's portrait. Not just Rebecca's technique, but something in the brushwork itself. Something familiar in a way he couldn't articulate. "Who? Are they Becca?" he whispered to the marble stone. "What weren't you telling me?" 3 days later, Nathaniel found himself doing something unprecedented, cancelling a quarterly review to drive past Harmony House during his lunch break. The century-old Victorian home had been converted into a children's residence decades ago, its faded grandeur still visible beneath peeling paint and retrofitted accessibility ramps. He slowed the Bentley, observing children playing in the fenced yard. In the far corner, separated from the rowdier games, 4 identical girls sat at a weathered picnic table, heads bent over sketchbooks. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Even from a distance, their intense concentration was evident. Nathaniel felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. Rebecca had always wanted children. He had always had reasons to wait. The company's growth, market instability, her health concerns. Now all the remaining reasons seemed hollow excuses. His phone rang, displaying his executive assistant's name. "Sir, the Tokyo investors are waiting on the conference call. Should I reschedule again?" Nathaniel took a last look at the quadruplets before pulling away. "No, Catherine. Put them through to my car system. I'm heading back now." That evening, Nathaniel worked late in his penthouse office, unable to dismiss the quadruplets from his thoughts. A light knock interrupted his distraction. "Mrs. Fenton is here to review the household accounts," his housekeeper announced. Nathaniel nodded, grateful for the interruption. Grace Fenton had managed his personal finances for 15 years, predating even Rebecca. Unlike his corporate accountants, Grace knew every aspect of the Reeds' private life, including elements Nathaniel himself often overlooked. "The foundation accounts look excellent," Grace noted, reviewing figures on her tablet. "Rebecca would be pleased with the arts education initiatives." "Grace," Nathaniel began hesitantly, "did Rebecca ever mention specific children from her volunteer work? 4 identical girls, perhaps?" Grace's expression shifted subtly. "The Reynolds quadruplets. Yes, she mentioned them often." She studied him with concern. "Have you met them?" "At the cemetery," Nathaniel confirmed. "They were leaving drawings at Rebecca's grave." Grace smiled sadly. "They adored her. Rebecca brought photos of their artwork to show me sometimes. She said they had remarkable talents for children with such challenging circumstances." "What circumstances?" Grace hesitated. "Perhaps this is a conversation you should have with someone from Harmony House. I only know what Rebecca shared, which wasn't detailed. She was always protective of the children's privacy." Nathaniel nodded, respecting the boundary, while making a mental note to investigate further. "One more question. Did Rebecca ever mention teaching them her distinctive portrait technique? The light reflection in the eyes?" A strange expression crossed Grace's face. "Not that I recall," she said carefully. "Rebecca was quite protective of that particular technique. She considered it her artistic signature." After Grace departed, Nathaniel returned to his computer, opening a search window. He hesitated only briefly before typing "Reynolds quadruplets, Harmony House." The search returned minimal results. A local newspaper article about multiple births in the county 8 years ago, a brief mention in a Harmony House fundraising newsletter. Nothing substantial about their background or how they'd come to live in a children's home. Nathaniel closed his laptop, troubled by questions he couldn't articulate. Something about those children nagged at him. Something beyond their connection to Rebecca or their artistic talents. He found himself opening his phone, studying the photos of their drawings again, particularly Mia's portrait with its hauntingly familiar technique. Thomas, his longtime driver and the closest thing he had to a confidant, disturbed his thoughts. "Sir, will you be needing the car tomorrow morning? The usual cemetery visit?" Nathaniel shook his head. "No, Thomas. Actually, I'll need you for a different destination, Westfield Street. There's someone at Harmony House I need to speak with." The following morning, Nathaniel sat across from Harmony House's director, Marion Caldwell, a formidable woman whose compassionate eyes belied her no-nonsense demeanor. "The Reynolds girls are among our brightest residents," she explained after Nathaniel introduced himself and mentioned his cemetery encounter. "Their situation is rather unique, even for us." "How so?" Nathaniel asked, accepting the tea she offered. They arrived as infants, all four perfectly healthy, but with no family willing to take them. Their mother surrendered them immediately after birth, a young woman who felt unable to raise quadruplets on her own. Marion sipped her tea. Unfortunately, keeping siblings together is challenging enough with adoption. Quadruplets are virtually impossible to place together. And their father? No father is listed on their birth certificates. Their mother declined to provide that information. Nathaniel absorbed this, thinking of the four nearly identical faces with those distinctive amber eyes. They seem remarkably well adjusted despite their circumstances. Marion smiled. Children are resilient, Mr. Reed, and the girls have each other, which provides stability many of our residents lack. They're unusual in their unity. Where one goes, all go. They refuse to be separated even for different activities. Rebecca, my late wife, she taught them art? Mrs. Reed was a godsend, Marion confirmed. She recognized their artistic abilities immediately and nurtured them with extraordinary patience. When she became too ill to visit, she arranged for art supplies to be delivered monthly. That tradition continues through her foundation, though the girls don't know the supplies still come from her. Nathaniel felt a pang of shame. He managed Rebecca's foundation but delegated most decisions to the board. He'd had no idea they were supporting these specific children. The girls mentioned selling their artwork downtown, he said. Marion's expression tightened slightly. Yes, under our supervision. They're saving for their future education. Foster care benefits end when they age out of the system. And while we have some transition programs, their determination to attend art school requires substantial savings. 8-year-olds shouldn't have to worry about college funding, Nathaniel observed. Many of our children grow up faster than they should, Mr. Reed. The Reynolds girls understand their situation better than most. Marion studied him curiously. May I ask why you're interested in them? While we appreciate Rebecca's past support, your visit seems motivated by more than acknowledging her volunteer work. The question caught Nathaniel off guard. Why was he here? What was driving this curiosity about 4 orphaned girls? Their artistic talent is exceptional, he said finally, and they clearly meant something special to Rebecca. I suppose I'm trying to connect with parts of her life I neglected while she was alive. Marion's expression softened with understanding. Grief takes us down unexpected paths, Mr. Reed. If you'd like to support the girls' artistic development, we welcome community involvement. Though I should mention they're quite particular about their instructors. I'm no artist, Nathaniel admitted. Rebecca was the creative force in our relationship. As he prepared to leave, a thought occurred to him. Would it be possible to see their artwork, the pieces they create here, not just what they bring to Rebecca's grave? Marion led him to a small room, designated as an art studio, its walls covered with children's drawings and paintings. The west wall displays the quadruplets' work, she explained. They're quite prolific. Nathaniel approached the indicated area, immediately identifying the higher quality of these pieces compared to the other children's artwork. Each quadruplet had a distinct style despite their identical appearance. Anna's architectural precision, Emma's expressive landscapes, Lily's abstract emotional pieces, and Mia's lifelike portraits. He stopped abruptly before one of Mia's drawings, a stunning portrait of a woman with familiar amber eyes. Not Rebecca, but someone who shared a striking resemblance to the quadruplets themselves. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice unexpectedly hoarse. Marion came to stand beside him. "They call her the lady in our dreams," all 4 girls claim. To have the same recurring dream about this woman. Mia draws her most frequently, though they all attempt it occasionally. Nathaniel stared at the portrait, an inexplicable chill running through him. The woman looked startlingly like an aged-up version of the quadruplets, but with something else familiar in her features, something that stirred a memory he couldn't quite grasp. "Do you know anything about their birth mother?" he asked suddenly. Marion shook her head. "Only her name, which is confidential, unless the girls choose to search for her when they're older. She left no contact information, no family medical history, just 4 newborns and signed surrender papers." As Nathaniel departed Harmony House, his thoughts were in turmoil. He found himself driving not to his office but to the storage facility where Rebecca's personal belongings had been carefully preserved after her death. He hadn't been able to bear having her things at home, the constant reminders too painful in those early months. Now, he regretted the distance he'd placed between himself and her memory. The climate-controlled unit contained neatly labeled boxes. Rebecca's life catalogued and contained. Nathaniel moved purposefully to the section marked Art Studio. Inside the first box, he found sketchbooks dating back to her college years, carefully organized by date. He paged through them, watching her style evolve until he reached the books from the period when she began volunteering at Harmony House. The later pages contained quick sketches of children, including recognizable studies of the quadruplets. Rebecca had captured their individual personalities, despite their identical appearances. Anna's quiet leadership, Emma's analytical expression, Mia's observant gaze, Lily's dreamy demeanor. In the final sketchbook, dated shortly before her diagnosis, Nathaniel found something unexpected. Rebecca had drawn a split-page comparison. On one side, a portrait of Mia at age 5. On the other, a young woman who looked remarkably similar. Beneath it, Rebecca had written a single question: "How is this possible?" Nathaniel's hand trembled slightly as he turned the page. The next sketch showed all 4 quadruplets positioned around a portrait of the same young woman, Rebecca's. Notes in the margin read, "DNA test, ethical considerations, responsibility to tell." Tell what? Nathaniel flipped through the remaining pages, finding more questions than answers. Rebecca's final entry, dated just after her diagnosis, contained a single sentence: "Some secrets must remain buried to protect the innocent." That night, Nathaniel couldn't sleep. Rebecca's cryptic notes and the quadruplets' haunting amber eyes kept him awake until dawn. When he finally drifted off, he dreamed of 4 identical children standing at Rebecca's grave, their faces gradually morphing into a woman he almost recognized. He awoke with a start, reaching for his phone to call Dr. Martin Weiss. As Rebecca's oncologist and their longtime friend, Martin had been privy to medical information Nathaniel might not have been aware of. "Nathaniel," Martin answered warmly. "This is an unexpected pleasure. How are you holding up?" "I need to ask you something, Martin. Something about Rebecca." Nathaniel hesitated. "Before her illness, did she ever consult you about anything unusual? Perhaps something requiring DNA testing?" A careful silence followed. "Why do you ask?" "I've met some children she worked with. There are questions I can't answer." Martin's sigh was audible. "You should come to my office, Nathaniel. This isn't a conversation for the phone." 2 hours later, Nathaniel sat across from Martin in his private office, the medical degrees on the wall offering cold comfort for the conversation ahead. "Rebecca consulted me off the record about 3 years before her diagnosis," Martin began. "She had questions about genetic testing, specifically about determining biological relationships without all parties being aware." Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. She wanted to conduct secret DNA tests. On whom? Martin removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. She never explicitly stated her intentions, but she mentioned orphaned quadruplets who displayed unusual artistic talents, talents she believed might be genetically inherited rather than taught. The Reynolds girls, Nathaniel murmured. She was troubled, Nathaniel, ethically conflicted. She showed me photographs of their artwork alongside examples from someone else. The similarities were undeniable. From her own work, Nathaniel suggested. Martin shook his head. No, from samples she attributed to the quadruplets' biological mother. The implication hung in the air between them. Nathaniel struggled to find words. Are you suggesting Rebecca knew who their mother was? I believe she had suspicions she was investigating, Martin clarified. She mentioned something about a previous patient at the fertility clinic where she received treatments years ago. He hesitated. You remember when you were first married, the fertility treatments she underwent while you were attempting to start a family? Nathaniel nodded. That period had been difficult for both of them. The emotional roller coaster of fertility treatments, the ultimate diagnosis that Rebecca's eggs weren't viable, their eventual decision to focus on careers instead of pursuing alternate paths to parenthood. Rebecca donated eggs in college to pay for art supplies, Martin continued, a common practice among cash-strapped students. She mentioned finding paperwork suggesting her donated genetic material might have been utilized years later, potentially without proper consent protocols. The pieces began falling into place with sickening clarity. She believed the quadruplets were biologically hers, Nathaniel whispered, created from her donated eggs. Martin nodded gravely. She never confirmed it. The legal and ethical implications troubled her deeply. And then came her diagnosis, which diverted her attention to more immediate concerns. But the timing, Nathaniel pressed. The quadruplets are 8. Rebecca's initial fertility treatments were nearly 15 years ago. Frozen genetic material can remain viable for decades, Martin explained. And fertility clinics sometimes have complicated documentation practices, especially those that have changed ownership multiple times. Nathaniel struggled to process this information. If they are biologically Rebecca's, why wouldn't she tell me? Why keep this secret? Martin's expression softened with compassion. She was protecting everyone involved, Nathaniel. The girls have established lives. Disrupting that without absolute certainty would have been irresponsible. And your relationship was already strained by her illness. The harsh truth of those final words hit Nathaniel hardest. Their marriage had indeed suffered during Rebecca's illness, not from lack of love, but from his inability to face the reality of losing her. He had retreated into work, delegating her care to professionals, visiting dutifully but emotionally absent. There's one more thing, Martin added reluctantly. Rebecca asked about paternal genetic contribution in her hypothetical scenario. Specifically, whether a man diagnosed with low fertility could potentially be a biological father if his partner used assisted reproductive technology without his knowledge. The implications struck Nathaniel like a physical blow. She thought, they might be mine as well. That's impossible. We were told my contribution wouldn't be viable for IVF. Low probability isn't the same as impossible, Martin reminded him gently. And fertility science has evolved considerably since your initial testing. Nathaniel left Martin's office with more questions than answers, his world tilting on its axis. He found himself driving aimlessly, eventually stopping at a small park where he and Rebecca had often walked during the early years of their marriage. Sitting on their favorite bench, he tried to reconcile the Rebecca he thought he knew with this new information. Why hadn't she confided in him? He understood keeping the quadruplets at a distance during her illness, protecting them from watching, her deteriorate, sparing them that additional trauma. But not telling him about her suspicions felt like a fundamental breach of trust, unless she hadn't trusted him to handle the information appropriately. The thought struck him with painful clarity. Perhaps Rebecca had feared his reaction, How the successful, controlled CEO would respond to the possibility of biological children created without his knowledge or consent. His phone vibrated with Catherine's name on the display. "Sir, the board is asking about your absence. Should I reschedule today's meetings as well?" "Yes," Nathaniel decided, surprising himself. "Clear my calendar for the remainder of the week. Personal emergency." That Saturday morning found Nathaniel in an unlikely location, the downtown arts district where the Quadruplets sold their artwork. He spotted them easily, their identical appearances drawing natural attention from passers-by. They had set up a small display on an approved vendor corner, professionally presenting matted drawings at remarkably modest prices. Nathaniel observed from a distance, noting how they interacted with customers. Anna handled most transactions. Emma arranged the display. Mia discussed artistic techniques with interested buyers, and Lily created quick sketch portraits for additional donations. Their operation was impressively organized for 8-year-olds. Mrs. Winters sat nearby on a portable chair, her supervision minimal as the girls demonstrated practiced independence. Nathaniel approached their table during a lull in customers. "Good morning, girls," he greeted them. "Business looks promising today." Anna recognized him first. "You're Miss Rebecca's husband from the cemetery." "Nathaniel Reed," he introduced himself properly. "I was impressed by your artwork and wanted to see more." Emma studied him skeptically. "Our cemetery drawings aren't for sale. Those are just for Miss Rebecca." "I understand," he assured her. "I'm interested in your other work." He browsed their display, genuinely impressed by the quality and variety. "How long have you been selling your art?" 6 months, Anna answered. "We started after Miss Rebecca." She trailed off. "After she died," Lily finished softly. "She always said we could make a living with our art someday." Nathaniel selected 4 pieces, one from each girl, and handed Anna significantly, more than the marked prices. When she tried to give him change, he shook his head. The proper valuation of art includes recognizing when you're acquiring future masterpieces at bargain prices. As Anna carefully wrapped his purchases, Nathaniel noticed Mia watching him intently. Of the 4, she was the most observant, her amber eyes missing nothing. "You have Miss Rebecca's smile," she said suddenly, "just on one side. When you look at our drawings." The observation startled him. Rebecca had often teased him about his asymmetrical smile, the right side lifting slightly higher than the left when he was genuinely pleased rather than performing his corporate expression. "Rebecca had an artist's eye for detail," he replied carefully. "I see she taught you well." "She didn't teach us everything," Mia continued. "Some things we just know. Like how she did the eyes in portraits. I could always do that even before she showed us." Nathaniel felt his pulse quicken. "Interesting. Perhaps some artistic abilities are innate rather than learned." "That's what Miss Rebecca said," Emma joined in. "She said some talents run in families, even when families don't stay together." The statement, innocent yet loaded with implication, hung in the air between them. Nathaniel struggled to maintain his composed expression. She was a very wise woman. As he prepared to leave with his purchases, Lily approached him tentatively. "Mr. Reed, would you like to see our special drawings? The ones just for Miss Rebecca. We have copies." The offer touched him unexpectedly. "I would be honored." Lily retrieved a portfolio from beneath their table, carefully extracting duplicate versions of their cemetery offerings. "We always make 2, one for her grave and one to keep." Nathaniel examined the drawings with genuine appreciation, noting the technical skill and emotional depth remarkable in artists so young. When he reached Mia's portrait, the one using Rebecca's distinctive technique, he paused. "Who is this woman in your portrait, Mia?" The quadruplets exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Anna nodded slightly, giving permission for Mia to answer. "We don't know her name," Mia explained. "She comes in our dreams. All four of us have the same dream about her. She's in a bright room with big windows, painting at an easel. She turns and smiles at us, but she looks sad too. Sometimes she talks to us," Lily added. "She says she's sorry she couldn't keep us, but that she loves us." "And Miss Rebecca looked funny when we first told her about our dream lady," Emma recalled. "She asked a lot of questions about her." Nathaniel carefully controlled his reaction, though his heart pounded painfully against his ribs. "The woman in your dreams, does she look like anyone you know?" The quadruplets considered this seriously, conferring with glances and subtle gestures. Finally, Anna answered for them all. "She looks like us, but grown up, and a little like Miss Rebecca around the eyes. We thought maybe she was our mother, but Miss Rebecca said that was complicated." "Very complicated," Nathaniel agreed, his voice rougher than intended. "Thank you for sharing your special drawings with me." As he walked away, he heard Mia's voice behind him. "He has the same sad eyes as the man in my dream." Nathaniel froze, turning slowly back toward the girls. "What man in your dream?" Mia looked surprised by his reaction. "Sometimes there's a man with our dream lady. He doesn't see us. He's looking at papers on a desk. Our dream lady puts her hand on his shoulder, but he doesn't look up." The description sent a chill through Nathaniel. How many evenings had Rebecca stood beside his desk while he remained absorbed in work, missing opportunities for connection that could never be recovered? "What does this man look like?" he asked, although he feared he already knew the answer. Mia studied him openly now. "Like you, but not as sad. And his hair doesn't have the silver parts yet." Nathaniel thanked the girls again and walked swiftly back to his car, needing distance to process this new information. The quadruplets weren't just having identical dreams. They were dreaming of what appeared to be Rebecca and a younger version of himself. The implications were staggering. That evening, Nathaniel sat in his home office, Rebecca's journals spread before him, alongside the quadruplets' artwork. The similarities were undeniable, not just in technique, but in fundamental artistic perspective, the way they captured light, their compositional instincts, their use of negative space, all echoed Rebecca's distinctive approach. His phone rang, displaying Grace Fenton's number. He had asked her to review Rebecca's personal financial records from before their marriage, specifically any documentation of egg donation and subsequent legal agreements. "I found something," Grace said without preamble. Rebecca received compensation from Westlake Fertility Clinic in her final year of art school. The standard anonymized donor agreement. But there's more. 8 years ago, she received a certified letter from Westlake's successor clinic, New Life Fertility Partners. "What did it say?" Nathaniel pressed. "I don't have the letter itself," Grace explained, "just the certified mail receipt in her financial records. But 3 days after that receipt, Rebecca made an appointment with Martin Weiss, according to her calendar. And 9 months later, the Reynolds quadruplets were born," Nathaniel concluded quietly. "Nathaniel," Grace's voice softened, "are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting?" "I don't know what I'm suggesting anymore, Grace," he admitted, "just trying to understand why Rebecca kept so many secrets." After ending the call, Nathaniel returned to Rebecca's journals, searching for entries from 8 years ago. He found sparse documentation during that period. Rebecca had never been consistent with journaling, but one entry caught his attention. "Ethical dilemma beyond imagination," she had written. "My genetic material used without proper consent. N's contribution potentially utilized without knowledge. Quadruplets resulting from unauthorized embryo implantation in surrogate. Surrogate unaware of genetic origins. Legal implications astronomical. Moral responsibility unclear. Children innocent in this equation." Nathaniel read the entry multiple times, the implications growing clearer with each reading. Someone at the fertility clinic had apparently used Rebecca's donated eggs and somehow his genetic material to create embryos without their knowledge or consent. These embryos had been implanted in a surrogate who believed she was carrying donated embryos from anonymous sources, resulting in the quadruplets. The technical and ethical violations were staggering, but more pressing to Nathaniel was the personal. Truth emerging. The Reynolds quadruplets were, in all likelihood, his and Rebecca's biological children. Children Rebecca had discovered but chosen not to claim legally. Children she had instead supported from a distance, nurturing their inherited artistic talents while keeping their genetic origins secret. Children who now haunted his wife's grave, with drawings that carried their shared artistic signature. As the first light of dawn broke through his office windows, Nathaniel came to a decision. He reached for his phone and dialed Martin Weiss once more. "I need your help with something, Martin," he said when the doctor answered. "Something Rebecca started but couldn't finish." The DNA results arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered in a plain manila envelope to Nathaniel's private office rather than his home. He stared at the sealed document for nearly an hour before finding the courage to open it, his hands uncharacteristically unsteady for a man who regularly signed billion-dollar contracts without hesitation. The clinical language of genetic science transformed Nathaniel's world in an instant. 98% probability of biological paternity for all 4 Reynolds quadruplets. Accompanying documentation confirmed Rebecca's maternal DNA match as well. Nathaniel closed the folder and walked to the window, looking out over the city skyline that had been the backdrop of his ambition for decades. The empire he had built seemed suddenly hollow, its gleaming towers and corporate acquisitions pale shadows compared to the 4 small lives he'd unknowingly created. 4 daughters who had grown up in a children's home while he accumulated wealth they should have inherited by birthright. His intercom buzzed. "Sir, Ms. Harlow from Legal is here regarding the New Life Fertility Partners investigation." "Send her in," Nathaniel responded, gathering his composure. Diane Harlow had been Reed Innovations' chief legal counsel for 15 years. Her usual crisp efficiency was tempered today by the unusual nature of their discussion. "We've completed the preliminary investigation," she began, setting a thick folder on his desk. "The findings are disturbing at best, criminal at worst." "Tell me," Nathaniel said simply. New Life acquired Westlake Fertility's assets and records approximately 10 years ago. During the transition, a lab director named Dr. Gerald Foster was conducting unauthorized experiments with stored genetic material. Diane referenced her notes. Specifically, he was testing extended viability protocols using various donor samples, including those from Rebecca. "And my samples?" Nathaniel prompted. Diane nodded grimly. "You underwent testing for potential fertility issues shortly after your marriage. Those samples were apparently maintained in storage without proper consent documentation for disposal." So this Dr. Foster combined Rebecca's donated eggs with my stored genetic material without either of our knowledge or consent. Precisely. The resulting embryos were supposedly earmarked for viability research only, but our investigation indicates Foster implanted them in a young surrogate who believed she was carrying anonymously donated embryos for a standard surrogate arrangement. Nathaniel recalled what Marion had told him about the quadruplets' arrival at Harmony House, a mother who felt unable to raise them alone. The surrogate kept the pregnancy, but surrendered the children after birth. Yes, Foster falsified documentation to hide the genetic origins, and when New Life discovered irregularities in his research during an audit, he destroyed records and disappeared. The clinic assumed it was standard research misconduct, not unauthorized. Human embryo implantation. Until Rebecca received that letter 8 years ago, Nathaniel murmured. Diane looked surprised. You know about that? I'm piecing together what she discovered, Nathaniel explained. A letter arrived, and suddenly she began volunteering at Harmony House, developing relationships with quadruplets who displayed her artistic abilities. The letter was from a whistleblower at New Life, Diane confirmed. A lab technician who had worked under Foster discovered the protocol violations while archiving old research. She felt Rebecca had a right to know her genetic material had resulted in live births. But the technician didn't reach out to me, Nathaniel noted. Your involvement wasn't clear from the records. Foster had labeled your contribution as Anonymous Donor D67743. The technician only connected Rebecca because her donation paperwork included her full name and contact permissions for research follow-up. Nathaniel absorbed this information. The legal and ethical violations momentarily secondary to the personal implications. Rebecca knew they were hers, ours, biologically, yet she chose not to tell me, not to pursue custody. Diane hesitated. There's something else, sir. Rebecca did consult our firm confidentially regarding her options. I wasn't directly involved, but I've reviewed the file. She explored potential custody claims, but ultimately decided against pursuing them. Why? The question emerged more sharply than Nathaniel intended. The documentation cites several factors, Diane explained carefully. The emotional well-being of the children, who were already established at Harmony House, the complex legal battle that would have ensued with New Life, potentially exposing the quadruplets to public scrutiny and medical examination. And, she paused. And, Nathaniel prompted, and concerns about disrupting their lives with a father who, in her words, had explicitly stated numerous times he did not want children. Diane's professional demeanor softened slightly. I'm sorry, sir. I understand this must be difficult. Information to process. Nathaniel turned back to the window, needing a moment to compose himself. Had he really been so explicit in his rejection of fatherhood that Rebecca felt compelled to keep their biological children secret? The painful truth was that he had. Throughout their marriage, Rebecca had gently raised the possibility of adoption or surrogacy after their fertility treatments failed. He had consistently cited the demands of his career, the responsibility of the company, the employees who depended on him, excuses that now seemed unutterably selfish. What are my options now? He asked finally, turning back to face Diane. Legally, you have several paths. You could pursue criminal charges against New Life and attempt to locate Foster. You could file for paternity rights and seek custody of the quadruplets. Or you could maintain the status quo, perhaps establishing a trust for their future needs without disrupting their current situation. And the likelihood of success if I pursue custody, Diane considered carefully. Given your financial resources and the DNA evidence, fairly strong. However, the courts prioritize stability and emotional well-being for children. The quadruplets have been at Harmony House their entire lives. Any transition would need to be handled with extreme sensitivity. After Diane departed, Nathaniel sat alone with the weight of decisions that would affect not just his life, but the lives of 4 children who had never asked to be born into such complicated circumstances. Children who had inherited Rebecca's artistic brilliance and perhaps his own determination. Children who visited their biological mother's grave each week without knowing she was more than a kindly art teacher. His intercom buzzed again. Sir, Marion Caldwell from Harmony House is on line 1. She says it's regarding the Reynolds girls. Nathaniel answered immediately. Ms. Caldwell, is everything all right? Mr. Reed. Marion's voice carried an edge of concern. I'm calling because the girls mentioned meeting you at their weekend art sale. While we appreciate community interest in our children's talents, I need to clarify our policies regarding ongoing contact with our residents. Of course, Nathaniel replied. I apologize if my presence was inappropriate. It's not that, Marion explained. It's just that the girls are quite taken with you. Apparently, you purchased their artwork and expressed interest in their special drawings for Rebecca. They're now asking if you might visit during their art session tomorrow. Nathaniel hadn't expected this development. And that would be problematic? It's unusual, Marion admitted. The Reynolds girls are typically reserved with adults, especially men. They've never specifically requested a visitor before. I wanted to understand your interest before responding to their request. The question was reasonable, though Nathaniel wasn't prepared to reveal the full truth yet. Rebecca's art mentorship clearly meant a great deal to them, he said carefully. I suppose I'm seeking connection to that aspect of her life. If my visits would be disruptive, I certainly understand. Marion was quiet for a moment. Actually, positive male role models are something our residents, particularly the Reynolds girls, could benefit from. If you're genuinely interested in supporting their artistic development, we could arrange supervised visits through our community volunteer program. I'd like that very much, Nathaniel said, surprising himself with the depth of his sincerity. The following afternoon, Nathaniel arrived at Harmony House carrying a large portfolio case. Marion greeted him in the entrance hall, her professional demeanor softened slightly by cautious optimism. The girls have been asking about you since this morning, she informed him as she led him toward the art room. I should warn you, they can be rather intense when they're focused on their art. I appreciate the warning, Nathaniel replied, though nothing could have truly prepared him for the experience of entering a room where 4 genetically identical children, his children, looked up simultaneously with identical expressions of pleased recognition. Mr. Reed, Lily, the most openly emotional of the quadruplets, greeted him first. You really came. I brought something I thought you might find interesting, Nathaniel said, setting his portfolio on a clear table space. Some of Rebecca's original artwork from when she was studying at the university. This announcement created an immediate stir among the quadruplets, who gathered around with expressions of reverent curiosity. Nathaniel carefully extracted several of Rebecca's student pieces, including early experiments with the highlighting technique Mia had somehow inherited. These are her originals? Emma asked, her analytical mind clearly processing the implications. Not prints. Original sketches and studies, Nathaniel confirmed. Rebecca saved everything from her development as an artist. She believed in documenting the journey, not just the destination. The quadruplets examined the artwork with a focus and appreciation remarkable for their age, occasionally exchanging glances that seemed to communicate complete thoughts without words. Nathaniel observed this silent language with fascination, wondering if it resulted from their identical genetics or simply from 8 years of constant companionship. You see how her technique evolved? He pointed out, showing progression through Rebecca's sketchbooks. This earlier attempt at capturing light reflection in the eyes compared to this later refinement. Mia studied the examples with particular intensity. Mine still looks different, she observed, glancing at her own recent portrait on the wall. The light comes from inside, more than outside. The insight was startlingly perceptive and accurate. Mia's technique created an impression of inner luminosity in her subject's eyes, while Rebecca's captured external light sources reflecting. Similar but distinct approaches to the same artistic challenge. Different isn't wrong, Nathaniel assured her. Artists build on techniques they learn, adding their own perspective. That's how art evolves. Marion observed their interaction from across the room, her expression thoughtful as Nathaniel guided the quadruplets through Rebecca's artistic development. He was careful to maintain appropriate boundaries, focusing on the artwork rather than personal connections though every shared mannerism or expression the girls displayed sent a fresh jolt of recognition through him. As their session concluded, Anna, always the spokesperson, approached Nathaniel while her sisters gathered. "Their supplies. Will you come again? Maybe next week?" The simple question carried weight far beyond its surface meaning. Nathaniel was acutely aware that these children had experienced abandonment from birth. Promises made casually could cause genuine harm. "I'd like that very much," he said carefully. "If Ms. Caldwell approves, perhaps we could make this a regular arrangement." Anna nodded seriously. "We'd make sure to have new drawings to show you." "I look forward to seeing them," Nathaniel replied, meaning it more deeply than Anna could possibly understand. As he prepared to leave, Marian accompanied him to the entrance. "You're good with them," she observed. "More natural than I would have expected from—" She hesitated. "From a corporate CEO with no children," Nathaniel finished wryly. "Precisely," Marian admitted. "Though I'm curious why Rebecca never mentioned her husband during her volunteer work here. She spoke of you as if you lived entirely separate lives." The observation stung with truth. "Toward the end, I suppose we did," Nathaniel acknowledged. "My company demanded increasing attention as her health declined. It's one of my deepest regrets." Marian studied him thoughtfully. "The girls finish their homework in the library between 4 and 5 most weekdays. If you'd like to expand your mentorship beyond art sessions, I'm sure they would welcome the academic support as well." "Thank you," Nathaniel said, recognizing the offer as the opportunity it was. "I'd be honored." Over the next 3 weeks, Nathaniel restructured his entire professional life around regular visits to Harmony House. He delegated operational decisions that had once required his personal attention, rescheduled board meetings that conflicted with the Quadruplets art sessions, and gradually shifted from CEO who never slept to executive with priorities beyond profit. His executives noticed. Catherine, his assistant of 12 years, finally addressed the elephant in the room during a rare moment when his schedule showed actual breathing room. "Sir, the board is concerned about your reduced hours," she informed him, her tone careful. "There are questions about whether personal matters might be affecting company leadership." Nathaniel looked up from the foundation proposal he was reviewing. "A substantial expansion of arts education funding for underserved communities. The company is posting record profits this quarter. What specific leadership concerns have been raised?" "It's more about your availability," Catherine explained. "Your calendar used to be booked 6 weeks in advance. Now you have standing appointments that can't be moved, regardless of business priorities." "My priorities have evolved, Catherine," Nathaniel said simply. "Please inform the board that Reed Innovations' leadership remains strong, but its leader has discovered the value of balance." Each visit to Harmony House deepened Nathaniel's connection to the Quadruplets. He learned their individual preferences and personalities. Anna's leadership manifested as protection of her sisters. Emma's analytical mind constantly sought logical patterns. Mia's quiet observation missed nothing. Lily's emotional sensitivity created both vulnerability and extraordinary empathy. They were unquestionably sisters, sharing mannerisms and thought patterns that went beyond their identical appearances. Yet they were also distinctly individual, each developing her unique approach to their shared artistic talent. Nathaniel recognized aspects of himself in their determination and Rebecca's influence in their creative perspectives. During one afternoon session, as the other residents played outside, Nathaniel found himself alone with the Quadruplets in the library. Emma was wrestling with a particularly challenging math problem, her frustration evident. "May I?" Nathaniel offered, glancing at her worksheet. Emma nodded, pushing the paper toward him. "It doesn't make sense," she complained. "The formula Works for the first two examples, but not the third. Nathaniel examined the problem, immediately recognizing the issue. You're applying the formula correctly, but this third example has a hidden variable. See here? He pointed to a specific section. They've introduced a condition that changes the equation slightly. Emma's expression cleared as she understood. It's a trick question, not a trick, Nathaniel corrected gently. A test of whether you're applying the formula by rote or truly understanding the underlying principle. Like in art, Mia interjected unexpectedly. When Miss Rebecca taught us about perspective, she said rules can change depending on what you're trying to show. Exactly, Nathaniel confirmed, struck by the insightful connection. Mathematical principles and artistic principles often share similar foundations. Emma reworked the problem with renewed determination, while Anna observed Nathaniel thoughtfully. You're good at math, she noted. Is that how you got rich? The direct question caught Nathaniel off guard. Partly, he answered honestly. Understanding numbers helped, but understanding people was more important. Is that why you come here? Lily asked. To understand us. The innocent question cut straight to the heart of Nathaniel's internal conflict. He was indeed trying to understand these children, his children, without revealing the truth prematurely or disrupting their lives more than necessary. I come here because I enjoy your company, he said truthfully, and because Rebecca would have wanted me to support your artistic development. But you never came when she was alive, Mia observed, her perceptiveness unsettling. She never talked about you visiting. Nathaniel felt a flush of shame. I was very focused on my work then. It's one of my biggest regrets now. The quadruplets exchanged one of their communicative glances, some unspoken assessment passing between them. Finally, Anna spoke again. We have a special art show next month. All the Harmony House kids. Would you come to that? I wouldn't miss it, Nathaniel promised, recognizing the invitation as a significant step in their developing trust. That evening, Nathaniel met with Diane Harlow to discuss the ongoing legal investigation into New Life Fertility Partners. The conference room in Reed Tower offered sweeping views of the city lights, though Nathaniel found his attention drawn to the photographs on his phone, the quadruplets' recent artwork he'd documented during their session. We've located Teresa Winters, Diane announced, referring to the surrogate who had carried and delivered the quadruplets. She's living in Arizona now, remarried with 2 stepchildren. Based on our preliminary contact, she seems unaware of the genetic origins of the quadruplets she surrendered. Has she been told now? Nathaniel asked. Not the full details, Diane replied. We simply indicated that information had emerged regarding the children she delivered 8 years ago, and asked if she would be willing to discuss her experience with New Life Fertility. And her response? She's agreed to a video call tomorrow morning, Diane confirmed. I should caution you, sir. Her perspective and relationship to the quadruplets is legally significant but emotionally complex. She carried them to term, gave birth, and made the painful decision to surrender them. Learning they resulted from unauthorized use of specific genetic material may be distressing. Nathaniel nodded, understanding the delicacy of the situation. I want to approach this with complete transparency and respect for her experience. She gave my daughter's life, regardless of the circumstances. The following morning, Nathaniel sat beside Diane in the private conference room as the video call connected. Teresa Winters appeared on screen, a woman in her mid-30s with kind eyes and nervous hands that continually adjusted her hair. Thank you for speaking with us, Mrs. Winters, Diane began. As I mentioned in our email, we're investigating ethical violations at New Life Fertility Partners related to a surrogacy arrangement approximately 8 years ago. Teresa nodded. The quadruplets, she said simply. I've always wondered about Them, if they found good homes. That's partly why we're reaching out, Diane continued carefully. Certain irregularities have emerged regarding the genetic origin of the embryos you carried. Teresa's expression shifted to concern. What kind of irregularities? Mrs. Winters, Nathaniel interjected, feeling a sudden need to speak directly. My name is Nathaniel Reed. My late wife Rebecca and I were the unwitting genetic donors of the embryos you carried, though we were never informed or consulted about their creation or implantation. Teresa's hand flew to her mouth. What? I was told they were anonymous donations, unwanted embryos from a fertility treatment that the genetic parents had completed their family and consented to donation. We've discovered that Dr. Foster falsified those consent documents, Diane explained gently. He combined genetic material from Mr. Reed and his late wife without authorization, as part of unauthorized research into extended embryo viability. Teresa appeared visibly shaken. I never would have agreed to be implanted with embryos without proper consent. Never. Her distress was evident. Those poor little girls. 4 identical babies, so perfect and beautiful. I couldn't keep them. Financially, emotionally, I wasn't prepared for quadruplets as a single mother. But I made sure they stayed together. That was my one condition with the adoption agency. They did stay together, Nathaniel assured her. They've grown up at a children's home called Harmony House. They're healthy, extraordinarily talented in art, and remarkably well-adjusted considering their circumstances. Relief washed over Teresa's face. They're together. That's good. Then confusion. But why are you contacting me now? After 8 years? I only discovered their existence recently, Nathaniel explained. I've been getting to know them as their mother's widower, not yet revealing our biological connection. I'm trying to determine the right path forward that prioritizes their emotional well-being. Teresa studied him through the screen. You want custody, she surmised. I want what's best for them, Nathaniel corrected. They've never had parents, but they've had stability, each other, and a supportive environment at Harmony House. Disrupting. That requires careful consideration. The legal considerations are complex, Diane added, but we wanted to speak with you directly, both to inform you of the situation and to understand your perspective as the woman who gave birth to them. Teresa was quiet for a long moment. I named them, you know, she finally said, before surrendering them. Harmony House kept the names, Anna, Emma, Mia, and Lily. I spent 3 months with them after birth, trying to make it work, before accepting I couldn't give them what they needed. You gave them life, Nathaniel said simply, and you made an incredible sacrifice to keep them together rather than pursuing separate adoptions, which might have been easier. They belong together, Teresa said firmly. Anyone could see that. 4 identical little girls, but you could already see their different personalities even as newborns. Separating them would have been cruel. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, with Teresa sharing her experiences during the pregnancy and difficult months afterward. She had no legal claim to the quadruplets, having formally surrendered her parental rights, but her emotional connection remained evident. If you pursue custody, she said toward the end of their conversation, I'd like to know they're okay. Maybe pictures sometimes, if that's possible. More than possible, Nathaniel assured her. They should know the woman who fought to keep them together, regardless of what happens next. After the call ended, Nathaniel sat in silence, processing this new piece of the complex puzzle surrounding his daughter's existence. She's a remarkably selfless person, he observed finally, to carry 4 babies to term and then make the painful decision to surrender them when she couldn't provide what they needed. Her testimony will be valuable if you decide to pursue legal action against new life, Diane noted. But more importantly, how does this conversation influence your plans regarding the quadruplets? Nathaniel considered the question carefully. I'm increasingly convinced they deserve to know the truth about their origins, not immediately, but soon. And then decisions about custody should include their input, to the extent children their age can participate in such determinations. A measured approach, Diane agreed, though I caution that once the truth emerges, events may unfold at their own pace, rather than according to plan. Nathaniel was contemplating this warning when his phone chimed with a message from Marion. Caldwell, need to speak with you regarding the Reynolds girls. Please call when convenient, somewhat urgent. Alarmed, Nathaniel immediately dialed her number. Mr. Reed, Marion answered promptly. Thank you for returning my call so quickly. Is everything all right with the girls? He asked, trying to keep the parental concern from his voice. Yes and no, Marion replied. They're physically fine, but emotionally distressed. Someone visited Harmony House today claiming to be conducting research for a book about successful children in foster care. She asked very specific questions about the quadruplets and their artistic abilities. Nathaniel felt a chill. Who was this person? She presented credentials as Dr. Elizabeth Marshall from a Child Development Research Institute. However, when I followed up after her departure, that institute has no record of an Elizabeth Marshall on their staff. What kind of questions did she ask? Primarily about their artistic techniques, whether they'd undergone genetic testing, and if they had any contact with their biological family. She seemed particularly interested in their drawings of the woman they see in their dreams. The specific focus on genetic connections and their dreamscape artwork raised immediate red flags. Did she speak directly with the girls? Briefly, despite my staff's efforts to prevent unsupervised contact, she showed them photographs and asked if they recognized certain people. The girls were quite upset afterward. Emma said one of the photographs looked like the man in their dreams, the one who appears sometimes with their dream woman. Nathaniel's suspicion crystallized into certainty. This wasn't a researcher. I believe someone from New Life Fertility may be investigating the quadruplets, perhaps trying to determine if their genetic origins have been discovered. Marion's sharp intake of breath conveyed her alarm. Should I contact the authorities? Not yet, Nathaniel advised, thinking. Quickly, enhance security protocols at Harmony House, but avoid actions that might frighten the girls further. I'll have my security team investigate immediately. After ending the call, Nathaniel summoned Jenkins, his head of corporate security. I need everything you can find on a Dr. Elizabeth Marshall, who visited Harmony House today. And I want surveillance on the Reynolds quadruplets immediately, discreet but thorough. Sir, Jenkins responded with professional efficiency. Do we have reason to believe the children are in danger? I don't know, Nathaniel admitted. But someone is taking an unauthorized interest in children with unique genetic origins. I'm not willing to risk their safety while we determine the motive. As Jenkins departed to arrange security, Nathaniel found himself staring at the DNA results still on his desk. The situation was accelerating beyond his careful planning. Someone else was investigating the quadruplets, potentially connecting them to their biological origins. If New Life Fertility had realized their unauthorized embryo experiment had resulted in living children with identifiable genetic traits, they might take desperate measures to prevent exposure of their ethical and legal violations. Nathaniel's phone rang again, an unknown number. He answered cautiously. Mr. Reed, an unfamiliar female voice greeted him. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Marshall. I believe we share an interest in 4 remarkable little girls at Harmony House. Who are you really? Nathaniel demanded, signaling to his assistant to trace the call. Someone who understands their significance, the woman replied. Quadruplets with identical genetics don't typically display such remarkable artistic abilities without exceptional genetic foundations. When I noticed their drawings during a routine documentation of foster outcomes, I became curious about their origins. Your curiosity is both invasive and potentially harmful to 4 innocent children, Nathaniel responded coldly. On the contrary, she countered, I'm offering them opportunity. Genetic exceptionalism deserves scientific study and development. The techniques Dr. Foster pioneered with extended viability embryonic material have implications far beyond one unauthorized implantation. The casual reference to Foster confirmed Nathaniel's suspicions. You worked with Foster at New Life. Dr. Foster was ahead of his time, she acknowledged. Unfortunately, his methods violated conventional ethics protocols. I've spent years tracking the outcomes of his research. The Reynolds quadruplets represent his most successful application. They're children, not research outcomes. Nathaniel snapped, his protective instinct flaring. What exactly do you want? A conversation, Mr. Reed, about your daughter's extraordinary potential and how we might collaborate to help them achieve it while advancing important scientific understanding. The woman's emphasis on your daughters sent a chill through Nathaniel. She knew. Somehow she had connected him to the quadruplets' genetic origins. Stay away from them, he warned. Any further contact with the quadruplets will result in immediate legal action. Consider my proposal before you dismiss it, she replied, unfazed. I'll be in touch again soon. Those girls deserve to understand their exceptional origins. The call ended, leaving Nathaniel with the unsettling certainty that the carefully measured approach he'd planned had just become impossible. Someone else knew the truth about the quadruplets' creation and was actively investigating them. The time for cautious deliberation had ended. He needed to act now to protect his daughters, even if that meant accelerating revelations he'd hoped to make more gradually. He reached for his phone again, dialing Marion Caldwell with a new sense of urgency. The quadruplets' safety had become his primary concern, superseding all other considerations. Whatever came next, he would face it not as Nathaniel Reed, CEO, but as the father these children had never known they had. Marion, he said when she answered, we need to talk about the Reynolds girls immediately. There's something important. You need to know, and decisions that can't wait any longer. Marion Caldwell's office felt smaller than usual as Nathaniel finished explaining the extraordinary truth about the Reynolds quadruplets. The revelation hung in the air between them, shifting the foundation of everything Marion thought she knew about the children in her care. She sat perfectly still, hands folded on her desk, processing information that seemed more suited to a medical thriller than a children's home in Boston. You're certain? She finally asked, her professional demeanor strained by the implications. The DNA confirmation is absolute, 98% probability, Nathaniel confirmed. They are biologically Rebecca's and mine, created without our knowledge or consent through unauthorized use of our genetic material. Marion exhaled slowly. And this woman who visited today is connected to the fertility clinic responsible for this ethical nightmare, Nathaniel finished. Her interest in the girls suggests New Life may be attempting to contain potential legal exposure by monitoring the quadruplets. Or worse, they may have scientific interest in their development as unauthorized genetic creations. This is... Marion struggled to find appropriate words. Unprecedented in my 30 years of child welfare experience. I understand this puts you in an extraordinarily difficult position, Nathaniel acknowledged. As their current guardian, you have both legal and ethical responsibilities to the girls. I'm not asking you to simply hand them over based on biological connection alone. Marion's eyes sharpened with the professional acumen that had guided her career. What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Reed? First, Enhanced security for the quadruplets until we determine the extent of this Dr. Marshall's interest and intentions. My team can provide that immediately, with your permission. Marion nodded. Given the circumstances, I believe that falls within my authority to approve. Second, Nathaniel continued, I'd like to begin the legal process of establishing my paternity rights. Not to immediately remove them from Harmony House, but to create a legal foundation for increased involvement in their lives and decision-making regarding their welfare. And third, Marion prompted, correctly sensing more to his proposal. I believe the girls deserve to know the truth about their origins, Nathaniel said, confirming her assumption. Not all at once, perhaps, but a carefully managed introduction to their biological connection to Rebecca and myself. Marion was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. The Reynolds girls have never known any home but Harmony House. They've adapted remarkably well to their circumstances, but they remain fundamentally children who began life with profound abandonment. This revelation will transform their understanding of themselves and their place in the world. I know, Nathaniel said quietly. I've been wrestling with how to approach this since I received the DNA confirmation. I wanted to proceed slowly. Establish trust first, create a foundation for the truth. But this outside interest changes the calculation. I'd rather they hear the truth from us than have it revealed by someone with questionable motives. The use of us rather than me wasn't lost on Marion. Nathaniel was acknowledging her critical role in the quadruplets' lives and development, a gesture of respect that helped tip the scales of her decision. I'll need to consult with our legal counsel, she said finally. But assuming everything you've shared is properly documented, I won't oppose your paternity claim. The girls' welfare remains my primary concern, however. Any transition would need to be gradual and guided by child psychologists specializing in complex family integration. Of course, Nathaniel agreed immediately. I have no intention of disrupting their lives more than necessary. Their emotional well-being is paramount. There's one more consideration, Marion added. The quadruplets themselves. At 8 years old, they're old enough to have some voice in decisions affecting their future. How do you envision discussing this with them? Nathaniel had been contemplating this very question since receiving the DNA results. Truthfully, with age-appropriate explanations, they're remarkably perceptive children. I suspect they've already sensed some connection, given their comments about their dreams. Marion nodded thoughtfully. The dream woman and man, Rebecca, and you appearing in their subconscious. It's almost like their genetics are communicating what their conscious minds don't know. The observation resonated with Nathaniel's own thoughts. The quadruplets' identical dreams of Rebecca painting while he worked nearby seemed to transcend conventional explanation. Some deep genetic memory, perhaps, or simply the powerful bond between biological parents and children manifesting through their subconscious. When would you propose telling them? Marion asked, bringing the conversation back to practical matters. Soon, Nathaniel replied, within days rather than weeks, given the outside interest. But I'd like to consult with child psychology specialists first to determine the most appropriate approach. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent knock. Marion's assistant entered with visible concern. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a situation with the Reynolds girls. They're extremely upset, all four of them simultaneously. They're asking for Mr. Reed specifically. Nathaniel and Marion exchanged alarmed glances before hurrying from the office. They found the quadruplets in the common room, huddled together on a couch, identical expressions of distress on their faces. What struck Nathaniel immediately was their physical state. All four were pale and shaking slightly, as if experiencing the same physiological reaction simultaneously. Girls, Marion approached them gently. What's happened? It was Anna, as usual, who spoke for them all. "The dream changed," she said, her voice unsteady. "We all had it at the same time, during quiet reading, not sleeping, awake." "What dream, sweetheart?" Marion asked, though her glance at Nathaniel suggested she already suspected. "Our dream lady and the man," Lily interjected, her eyes wide. "But it wasn't nice this time. The lady was screaming at a different lady who wanted to take us away." Nathaniel felt a chill. "Take you away? What do you mean?" Mia, ever observant, studied Nathaniel's face carefully as she answered. "The mean lady from today, the one who showed us pictures. In our dream, she was trying to take us to a place with lots of machines and doctors." "The dream lady was crying," Emma added, her analytical mind clearly struggling with the emotional impact. "She kept saying, 'They're my babies, not your experiments.' And the man, he was fighting people who were trying to hold him back." Nathaniel knelt to their eye level, fighting to keep his voice steady. "This dream happened to all four of you, at the same time." 4 identical nods answered him. "And then we all just knew we needed to find you," Anna finished. "It felt important, urgent." Marion and Nathaniel exchanged troubled glances. The timing was too precise to be coincidence, immediately following the visit from the mysterious Dr. Marshall, and concurrent with their discussion of revealing the truth. "Mr. Reed needs to speak with you girls about something important," Marion said carefully. "Would you like to go to the private visiting room where it's quiet?" Another round of synchronized nods. The quadruplets rose as one, automatically arranging themselves in their usual order, Anna leading, followed by Emma, Mia, and Lily bringing up the rear. The formation had practical origins, Nathaniel had learned. It allowed them to navigate narrow hallways efficiently while maintaining their connection. In the visiting room, a comfortable space designed for family meetings with prospective adoptive parents, Nathaniel faced his greatest challenge: how to explain complex genetic realities to 8-year-olds in a way that didn't overwhelm them or disrupt their sense of identity. "Girls," he began once they were settled, "I need to tell you something about Rebecca, Miss Rebecca to you, and about myself. It's going to sound very surprising, maybe even confusing at first, and you can ask any questions you have." 4 pairs of identical amber eyes, Rebecca's eyes, watched him with solemn attention. "You know how sometimes children look like their parents? They might have the same color eyes, or similar smiles, or talents that seem to run in families. Like Jessie in the older kids' wing looks just like her mom in the pictures," Emma observed. "Exactly," Nathaniel confirmed. "That's because children receive special instructions called genetics from their birth parents. These genetics help determine many things about how you look and some of your natural abilities." "Like our art," Mia suggested with intuitive understanding. "Yes, like your remarkable artistic talents." Nathaniel took a steadying breath. "The reason all 4 of you look identical is because you're what's called identical quadruplets. You came from the same egg and sperm, which then divided into 4 separate embryos. This is extremely rare and special." "We know that part," Anna said with the patience of explaining something obvious. "Mrs. Winters at the shelter told us when we were 6. We're quadruplets. That's why we look the same but are still different people." Nathaniel smiled despite the tension. Of course, these precocious children already understood the basic concept of their identical origins. What you might not know is where those original genetic instructions came from, who provided the egg and sperm that created you. The quadruplets exchanged one of their communicative glances, some unspoken thought passing between them. "Our dream lady and man," Lily suggested hesitantly. Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. "The woman in your dreams, the artist working at her easel. That's Rebecca, my wife Rebecca, and the man working at his desk is me from years ago. 4 identical expressions of confusion transformed gradually into dawning comprehension. It was Emma, with her logical mind, who verbalized the conclusion first. "You're saying you and Miss Rebecca are our biological parents," she stated, rather than asked. "That's why Mia can do the special eye technique without being taught, and why we dream about you." Nathaniel nodded, momentarily unable to speak past the emotion constricting his throat. "But you didn't know about us," Anna surmised, her protective instincts clearly trying to reconcile this revelation with their life experience, "or you would have come before." "I didn't know," Nathaniel confirmed. "Neither did Rebecca when she first met you. She figured it out later, through complicated circumstances I can explain when you're a bit older. She became your art teacher because she recognized your talents you inherited from her." "Why didn't she tell us?" Mia asked, the hurt evident in her voice. Nathaniel chose his words carefully. "Rebecca was very ill by the time. She discovered the connection. She made choices she thought would protect you, though I believe she always intended to tell you when the time was right." "And now the mean lady from today knows?" Lily asked, connecting pieces with remarkable perception. "I believe she suspects," Nathaniel acknowledged. "She's from the place where this complicated situation began. That's why I needed to tell you the truth now, so you understand why we need to be extra careful until we resolve this situation." The quadruplets absorbed this information with extraordinary composure for children their age, though Nathaniel could see the emotional processing happening behind their identical expressions. "Does this mean we have to leave Harmony House?" Anna finally asked, the question clearly representing all their anxieties. "Not immediately," Nathaniel assured them. "Any changes would happen gradually, with everyone working together to make sure you feel safe and comfortable. Ms. Caldwell and I both want what's best for you." "But you're our biological father," Emma stated, testing the concept aloud. "So legally, you could take us home with you." "Legal rights come with responsibilities," Nathaniel explained gently. "My responsibility is to your well-being, emotional as well as physical. Rushing major changes would be irresponsible." Mia, who had been quietly observing, spoke up with her usual perceptiveness. "You look sad and happy at the same time." Nathaniel smiled at the accurate observation. I'm sad about the years we've missed together, and that Rebecca isn't here to share this moment. But I'm incredibly happy to finally know you as my daughters." "Can we still visit Miss Rebecca's grave on Thursdays?" Lily asked, her artistic sensitivity clearly concerned with maintaining important rituals. "Absolutely," Nathaniel confirmed immediately. Rebecca would want that tradition to continue. The conversation continued for nearly an hour, the quadruplets asking questions that ranged from practical concerns about their daily routines to deeper inquiries about their biological origins. Nathaniel answered each with honesty appropriate to their age, deferring more complex explanations for when they were older. As their meeting concluded, Marion rejoined them, her expression reflecting both professional concern and personal empathy for the extraordinary situation unfolding under her watch. "Girls, how are you feeling about everything Mr. Reed has shared?" she asked directly. 4 contemplative expressions greeted her question. It was Anna who finally summarized their collective response. "It feels strange, but also right. Like finding the missing piece in a puzzle we didn't know was incomplete. We'd like to know more about Miss Rebecca as our biological mother," Emma added, "and about how our genetics work to make us artists. I want to see pictures of you and Miss Rebecca together," Lily contributed, "to understand better." Mia, as usual, offered the most perceptive comment. "It explains why we always felt different, even here." We didn't just lose our parents like some kids. We never knew them because they never knew us. The simple clarity of Mia's statement struck Nathaniel forcefully. These extraordinary children had spent 8 years processing a fundamental abandonment that had never actually occurred in the way they understood it. Neither he nor Rebecca had chosen to give them up. They simply hadn't known of their existence. "I can bring photographs and tell you more about Rebecca tomorrow," Nathaniel promised, "and answer any other questions that might come up overnight." As the quadruplets prepared to rejoin the other residents for dinner, Anna hung back, waiting, until her sisters had moved ahead before approaching Nathaniel. "The lady in our dream today, the one who was arguing with Miss Rebecca, she's going to try again to take us away, isn't she?" The question demonstrated Anna's protective instincts and perceptive understanding of their situation. Nathaniel chose honesty over false reassurance. "I believe she might try to contact you again, but I promise I won't let anyone take you anywhere against your will. There are security people watching Harmony House already, and legal steps being taken to establish my rights as your father." Anna considered this solemnly. "We should tell you if we have more dreams like that one." "Absolutely," Nathaniel agreed. "And if anyone approaches you or your sisters, even if they seem friendly." Anna nodded decisively. "I'll make sure we stay together at all times. We're always stronger together." The simple statement carried profound truth. The quadruplets' bond had sustained them through 8 years without parents. That same unity would help them navigate this new chapter in their extraordinary lives. The following day brought practical developments alongside emotional processing. Nathaniel arrived at Harmony House to find Jenkins, his security chief, implementing enhanced measures with Marion's cooperation. Security cameras now monitored all entry points, and staff had been briefed on increased vigilance regarding visitors. "We've identified Dr. Elizabeth Marshall," Jenkins reported privately. "Her real name is Dr. Elise Mercer, former research associate to Dr. Gerald Foster at New Life Fertility. After Foster disappeared following the internal investigation, she continued his work through a privately funded research institute focusing on genetic exceptional development." "Genetic exceptional development?" Nathaniel questioned. "A euphemism for controversial research into genetic predispositions for specific abilities," Jenkins explained. "Their published work focuses on identifying and enhancing inherited talents through early intervention. They're looking for children with specific genetic markers for talents like mathematical ability or artistic aptitude," Nathaniel surmised, the implications sending a chill through him. "Children like the quadruplets with their inherited artistic abilities." "Precisely," Jenkins confirmed. "Dr. Mercer has established a specialized educational facility in New Hampshire, ostensibly a school for gifted children, but our sources indicate more extensive testing occurs than would be standard for educational purposes." This information cast Dr. Mercer's interest in the quadruplets in an even more concerning light. Not simply damage control for New Life's ethical violations, but active recruitment of genetically exceptional subjects for ongoing research. "Have there been any further attempts to contact the girls?" Nathaniel asked. "Nothing direct," Jenkins replied. "But we've identified surveillance on Harmony House that wasn't ours. Someone watching the property from multiple positions." "Maintain continuous security," Nathaniel instructed. "I want the quadruplets protected at all times, but without creating a fortress atmosphere that might frighten them." Nathaniel's meeting with the quadruplets that day took place in Harmony House's art room, an intentional choice to connect their biological heritage with the artistic abilities they'd inherited from Rebecca. He brought carefully selected photographs, chronicling his life with Rebecca, from their early courtship through their marriage, deliberately focusing on images that captured her artistic process. The quadruplets absorbed these visual connections to their biological mother with profound attention, noting similarities in technique and approach that transcended what could have been taught during Rebecca's volunteer sessions. "She used her whole arm when making big strokes, just like Lily does," Emma observed, pointing to a photograph of Rebecca working on a large canvas. "And she bit her lip when concentrating on details," Mia added. "I do that too." These genetic echoes, mannerisms and techniques they'd inherited rather than learned seemed to provide tangible confirmation of their biological connection in ways the children could understand without complex genetic explanations. As they examined the photographs, Nathaniel noticed a subtle shift in their interactions with him. Questions became more personal, expressions more open. The invisible barrier between mentor and children had begun dissolving, replaced by the tentative exploration of a father-daughter relationship none of them had expected. "What should we call you now?" Anna asked directly, addressing the practical consideration that clearly concerned all four. "Mr. Reed doesn't seem right anymore." The question caught Nathaniel unprepared. "Whatever feels comfortable to you," he offered. "There's no rush to change how you address me until you're ready." "What did you want to be called?" Emma pressed. Her logical mind seeking the concrete answer Nathaniel had evaded. "When you imagined having children before, what did you want them to call you?" The question pierced Nathaniel with unexpected poignancy. The truth was, he had never imagined having children in any serious way. His focus on career advancement had pushed those considerations permanently to someday. A someday that never arrived before Rebecca's illness made it impossible. "I think Dad would have been nice," he admitted quietly. "But that's a title that needs to be earned, not just assigned based on biology. For now, Nathaniel is perfectly fine." The quadruplets exchanged one of their communicative glances, some unspoken agreement passing between them. "We'll decide," Anna concluded, bringing the matter to a practical close. Their session was interrupted by Marion, whose expression conveyed carefully controlled concern. "Mr. Reed, there's a situation that requires your attention. A Dr. Elise Mercer is at reception requesting a meeting regarding the Reynolds girls. She has documentation from something called the Institute for Exceptional Development claiming educational assessment rights." Nathaniel exchanged a meaningful glance with Jenkins, who had materialized in the doorway at Marion's announcement. "Please tell Ms. Caldwell I'll join her momentarily," he instructed his security chief before turning back to the quadruplets. "I need to speak with someone," he explained carefully. "It's the woman from your dreams, the one who visited yesterday. She's returned, but you don't need to worry. Ms. Caldwell and I won't let her disturb you." Four identical expressions of concern greeted this statement. "She feels wrong," Lily said with artistic intuition that defied logical explanation. "In our dreams, she makes colors turn dark." "I'll handle this," Nathaniel assured them. "Please, stay here with your art teacher until we've resolved the situation." In Marion's office, Nathaniel found a woman in her early 50s, expertly styled in professional attire that suggested academic authority. Dr. Elise Mercer projected confidence and intellectual superiority, with calculating eyes that evaluated everything around her. "Mr. Reed," she greeted him with a thin smile. "I suspected you might be here. Our conversation yesterday was prematurely terminated." "There was nothing more to discuss," Nathaniel replied coldly. "Your interest in the Reynolds quadruplets is neither welcome nor appropriate." Dr. Mercer's smile remained fixed. "I've brought formal documentation requesting educational assessment of the Reynolds children through our institute's specialized testing protocols." She indicated the papers on Marion's desk. "As a licensed educational facility with state certification for exceptional learner evaluation, we have standing to request access for assessment purposes. Marion's expression remained professionally neutral, though Nathaniel could see the tension in her posture. These documents have no legal force without court approval when applied to children in state custody, she stated firmly. Harmony House does not grant testing access to outside organizations without thorough vetting and demonstrated educational benefit. I think we all know the Reynolds quadruplets aren't ordinary foster children, Dr. Mercer countered, her gaze shifting to Nathaniel. Their genetic origins are quite remarkable, as is their identical manifestation of inherited artistic aptitude. Such genetic transmission of specific talents, rather than general intelligence, is precisely what our institute studies. Their genetic origins are not open for discussion or study, Nathaniel stated flatly, nor are they available for your research interests, regardless of how you frame the request. Dr. Mercer's expression hardened. Let me be direct, Mr. Reed. Those children represent a unique research opportunity. Their biological origins, through unauthorized but groundbreaking fertility methods, their identical genetic structure combined with their exceptional inherited abilities. They are living proof of targeted genetic transmission theories our institute has been developing for years. They are children, not research subjects, Marion interjected firmly, and as their current legal guardian, I am declining your request for access, testing, or any further communication. You should understand, Dr. Mercer continued as if Marion hadn't spoken, her attention fixed on Nathaniel, that New Life Fertility's successor organization still maintains certain legal claims regarding research protocols developed under their auspices. The embryonic development that resulted in the Reynolds quadruplets originated in a research context, regardless of the unauthorized implantation. The implied threat was clear. Some twisted legal claim to the quadruplets based on their origins in Foster's unauthorized research. It was a desperate overreach, but the fact that she would attempt such a claim revealed the lengths to which she might go. Let me be equally direct, Nathaniel responded, cold fury evident in his controlled tone. Any claim New Life or its successors might assert regarding unauthorized use of genetic material would first require admitting to federal crimes regarding patient privacy violations, unauthorized use of human genetic material, and fraudulent medical practices. Before you go any further down this path, consider that I have the resources to ensure every aspect of Foster's work and New Life's negligent oversight becomes very public. Dr. Mercer's expression tightened. You're making a mistake, Mr. Reed. Those children's exceptional abilities could benefit from our specialized development protocols. Their potential exceeds anything Harmony House or even your considerable resources could provide without our expertise. I believe this conversation is concluded, Marion stated firmly, standing. Please leave the premises immediately, Dr. Mercer. Any further communication should be directed through our legal department. As Jenkins escorted the unwelcome visitor from the building, Nathaniel and Marion exchanged concerned glances. She'll try again, Marion observed. People that determined usually do. Yes, Nathaniel agreed, but we'll be prepared. The legal process to establish my paternity rights needs to be expedited. I've already spoken with our counsel, Marion confirmed. Given the DNA evidence and the potential risk to the children, they're preparing emergency filings for tomorrow morning. The judge will likely want to speak with the girls directly given their age. They're remarkably composed, but this is a lot for children to process, Nathaniel noted with concern. They've had each other throughout their lives, Marion reminded him. That bond gives them unusual emotional stability, and they've already begun incorporating you into their understanding of family. I've noticed the shift in how they relate to you just since yesterday. Nathaniel felt simultaneously humbled and terrified by the responsibility unfolding before him. 4 extraordinary children, biologically his, suddenly looking to him for protection and guidance. The corporate decisions that had once seemed so consequential paled in comparison. That evening, as Nathaniel prepared to leave Harmony House, Anna approached him with her sisters, following in their customary formation. "We've been talking," she announced, with the gravity of someone delivering an important committee decision. "About what?" Nathaniel asked, giving them his full attention. "About what to call you," Emma explained. "We took a vote." Nathaniel suppressed a smile at their democratic approach to this personal decision. "And what did you decide?" "Nathaniel for now," Anna stated, "until we know each other better, but we'd like to try Dad eventually, when it feels right." "That sounds perfect," Nathaniel agreed, unexpected emotion tightening his throat. "Also," Mia added with her characteristic perceptiveness, "we think we should come see your house soon, to understand where you live, in case we need to know." The practical consideration behind the request touched Nathaniel deeply. They were preparing themselves for potential changes, seeking familiarity with what might become their future home. "I'd like that very much," he replied. "Perhaps this weekend, if Ms. Caldwell approves." 4 identical nods greeted this suggestion, followed by an unexpected synchronized movement, as all 4 girls stepped forward to briefly hug him, before retreating with the same coordinated precision. The simple gesture, clearly planned and discussed among them beforehand, communicated acceptance more powerfully than words could have. 2 weeks later, Judge Eleanor Simmons looked up from the comprehensive file before her, studying the unusual assembly in her chambers. The Reynolds quadruplets sat in perfect alignment, identical in appearance, but distinct in subtle expressions and posture. Nathaniel Reed stood behind them, protective without being possessive. Marion Caldwell completed the tableau, her professional demeanor balanced by evident personal investment in the children under her care. "I've reviewed the DNA evidence and supporting documentation," Judge Simmons stated. "The biological connection is clearly established. I've also considered the psychological evaluations and the girls' own statements regarding their preferences." She addressed the quadruplets directly. "Girls, I understand you've had a lot of changes to process in a very short time. How are you feeling about Mr. Reed's petition for legal paternity and eventual custody?" It was Anna, as always, who spoke first. "We think it's logical, Your Honor. He's our biological father, and he's been visiting us every day to help us understand what that means. He brings pictures of our biological mother and tells us stories about her," Lily added, "so we can know her, even though she's gone. And he's arranged for us to continue our art education with professional instructors," Emma contributed practically, "while ensuring we maintain our regular routines at Harmony House during the transition." Mia, ever observant, concluded their collective response. "He calls us his daughters, but he doesn't try to make us call him Dad until we're ready. He's patient." Judge Simmons nodded thoughtfully. "And has he discussed the situation with Dr. Mercer and the Institute with you?" 4 identical expressions darkened simultaneously. He explained that some people are interested in us because of how we were created and our artistic abilities, Anna answered carefully. "But he and Ms. Caldwell have made sure those people can't bother us at Harmony House or at school." "Well," Judge Simmons said after a moment's consideration, "based on the compelling evidence and the quadruplets' own articulate testimony, I'm granting the petition for legal paternity. Regarding custody, I'm ordering a 3-month transition period with gradually increasing visitation and overnight stays, culminating in full custody transfer if all parties agree the adjustment is proceeding appropriately." She looked directly at Nathaniel. "Mr. Reed, your resources and evident commitment to these children's welfare are apparent. However, I want to emphasize that their emotional needs must take priority over any adult agendas, including protective instincts or professional obligations. I understand completely, Your Honor, Nathaniel replied sincerely. Their well-being is my primary concern. Ms. Caldwell will continue monitoring the transition through regular reports to the court, Judge Simmons continued. And I'm issuing a restraining order preventing Dr. Elise Mercer or any representative of the Institute for Exceptional Development from contacting the Reynolds children without express court permission. As they left the courthouse, Anna looked up at Nathaniel with an expression that balanced childhood vulnerability with remarkable maturity. Does this mean you're officially our father now? Legally? Yes, Nathaniel confirmed, though in every way that matters, I became your father the moment I learned the truth. The legal recognition just makes it official for everyone else. So we'll live with you eventually, Emma stated practically, in your big apartment on the top floor. That's the plan, Nathaniel agreed, though we'll move at whatever pace feels comfortable for all of you. Will we still be the Reynolds? Girls? Lily asked, the question revealing unexpected anxiety about their established identity. Nathaniel considered carefully before answering. Legally, you could take my last name if you wanted, but Reynolds is the name that connects you to your first. 8 years together. There's no rush to change that unless you want to. What would Miss Rebecca want? Mia asked with characteristic insight into the emotional dynamics at play. The question struck Nathaniel deeply. What would Rebecca have wanted for the daughters she'd discovered, but never claimed? I think she would want whatever makes you feel most secure and connected to your complete history, he answered honestly. Perhaps Reynolds Reed would honor both parts of your journey. The quadruplets exchanged their communicative glances, some unspoken assessment passing between them. We'll think about it, Anna concluded, the matter apparently assigned to their internal discussion process. 6 months later, Nathaniel stood in the newly renovated art studio that occupied the entire east wing of his penthouse apartment. The space featured 4 identical workstations positioned to capture optimal natural light, along with a gallery wall displaying Rebecca's artwork, alongside developing pieces from each quadruplet. The transition had proceeded more smoothly than anyone anticipated. The girls' unified approach to change, making decisions collectively and moving forward together, had facilitated a gradual but steady integration into Nathaniel's life. They still visited Harmony House regularly, maintaining connections with staff and residents who had been their family for 8 years, while simultaneously establishing new traditions in their expanded family configuration. The legal battle, with New Life Fertility's successor organization and Dr. Mercer's Institute, had been resolved through a combination of financial settlement and binding non-disclosure agreements. The quadruplets' unusual origins remained private, protected from media attention or scientific curiosity. Their genetic exceptionalism would remain theirs to explore on their own terms, not as research subjects for others' theories. Nathaniel's corporate responsibilities had been permanently restructured, with capable executives assuming operational control while he maintained strategic oversight. His priorities had shifted irrevocably, board meetings now scheduled around art classes and school events rather than the reverse. Dad, Emma's voice interrupted his reflections. All 4 girls had begun using the title simultaneously. 3 months earlier, an apparently collective decision implemented without forewarning. We finished the project for Miss Rebecca's grave. Would you like to see it? The quadruplets had maintained their Thursday visits to Rebecca's grave, though now Nathaniel accompanied them rather than crossing paths accidentally. Their artwork had evolved from individual pieces to collaborative projects combining their distinct strengths into integrated creations. "I'd love to," Nathaniel replied, following Emma to the central work table where her sisters waited. The piece before him took his breath away. Using a technique combining painting and sculpture, the Quadruplets had created a three-dimensional interpretation of Rebecca's studio, the bright room with big windows from their shared dreams. Within this miniature space stood a precisely rendered figure of Rebecca at her easel, turning toward the viewer with the gentle smile they'd described from their dreamscape. What made the piece extraordinary was how each quadruplet's distinctive style integrated seamlessly with the others. Anna's architectural precision formed the structure of the studio. Emma's landscape technique created the view through the windows. Lily's emotive abstraction informed the color palette and emotional resonance. Mia's portraiture captured Rebecca's essence in the central figure. "It's remarkable," Nathaniel said, emotion evident in his voice. "She would be so proud of what you've created together. We thought she should have something that shows how we found each other through her," Mia explained, "even though she couldn't tell us herself. She brought us together," Anna added, "first by teaching us art, then by leaving clues for you to find us." "Do you think she can see it?" Lily asked, her artistic sensitivity extending to spiritual possibilities from wherever she is now. Nathaniel considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. "I believe she can. In fact, I think she's been watching over all of us throughout this journey." As they prepared the special artwork for transport to the cemetery, Nathaniel reflected on the extraordinary path that had led them to this moment. 4 identical girls selling drawings at his wife's grave had transformed into 4 distinct daughters, sharing his life and home. Their genetic connection had initiated the discovery, but the relationship they were building transcended biology. Rebecca had recognized their artistic inheritance and nurtured it without claiming maternal rights. She had protected them from disruption during her illness, while ensuring Nathaniel would eventually find them through the trail of artistic breadcrumbs she'd left behind. "Ready?" Anna asked. The quadruplets assembled in their customary formation, with the carefully packaged artwork secured between them. "Ready!" Nathaniel confirmed, following his daughters toward the door. They would place their collaborative creation at Rebecca's grave, honoring the mother they'd known only through dreams and stories. Then they would return home together, not to the penthouse, but to the brownstone Nathaniel had purchased near their school and art center, a home designed around their needs rather than his former solitary existence. Life had come full circle from that first unexpected encounter at the cemetery. 4 identical girls with remarkable artistic talents had transformed from strangers to daughters, their inherited gifts connecting them to parents they'd never known. The empire Nathaniel had built seemed insignificant compared to the family he'd discovered, a family created through extraordinary circumstances but sustained through deliberate choice and commitment. As they entered the elevator, 4 identical faces looked up at him with expressions that balanced their shared genetics with their individual personalities. In that moment, Nathaniel understood with perfect clarity what Rebecca had recognized years earlier. These extraordinary children were their most meaningful legacy, more valuable than any corporation or artistic masterpiece. They were, in every sense, their masterpiece, a collaboration more profound than either had imagined possible. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.